All right, everybody. I have an amazing guest for you guys. He was the lead singer of Ill Nino, but he is now the front man of this amazing new band called Lions at the Gate. We have a single out right now called Not Human. I am talking about the one and only Cristian Machado. Cristian, welcome to Pedal to the Metal Radio, the podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me on. Really grateful for this interview and for getting a chance to, BS and chat with you for a little bit.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I got to ask you, my man, like, how have you been since, because obviously right now we're getting out of the troubles of the pandemic and all that stuff. How have things been for you?
Well, man, I personally had a very challenging 2-3 years between the separation of the band, also relationship separation, and between that and COVID, let's just say it has been really challenging, but, I'm getting by just like everybody else is, man, Yeah. I think that the American public and the world public are due a huge thank you from, the government here for people just getting by and being able to survive through this. Even if you didn't catch COVID, a lot of people lost work and weren't able to work. And it's been challenging just like it has been for everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm lucky, at least I got my daughter with me, and she got through the school year good, and she did good in school, and really that's a blessing in itself.
Of course.
Because what they did with the school closures was horrific. What they did to kids, and I understand there was a danger, but my daughter's a 7-year-old. It was her first year in school, and what she got to experience was school closures, pretty much.
Yeah, and just think of the overall experience of being able to go to school, and think of all the kids who were like seniors in high school who never got to experience, all the things everybody else got to before COVID. I mean, that,
right.
That's a shame. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of school kids were robbed of really important, whether it's developmental time, like it is for first graders and kindergartners and stuff like that, or second graders even. Those are really important years of schooling, and so are the high school years. And even when you graduate high school, it's a big accomplishment, and a lot of kids did get robbed of that as well. It's tough, but hopefully, they do say kids are resilient. My daughter's been amazing through it, so I'm blessed with that. Other than that, just hoping to be able to play some shows soon. Hopefully things will go back to normal and I can, play some music for people. It's really what I'm best at. And, trying to find other skills is pretty tough nowadays.
Yeah, no kidding. Because I'm like, for me, this was, doing, radio and interviews, like podcasts. I'm like, that's my thing. Cause I'm about to push 40. So I'm like, man, I don't know if there's anything else I can do at this point. You know what I mean? It's tough.
Yeah. I'm with you, dude. I got to stick with what I know good, and music is what I know best. I'm lucky I also get to work with some regional acts, and people hire me to do songwriting or production on their albums. So I'm blessed with that as well. And one thing that we should say about the challenging times over the last year and a half is people that weren't able to work from home and have kids. I have no idea how they did it. I'm lucky. I have a home studio and I could do a lot of the work there. Sometimes I have to go into a bigger studio to get the session finished, but I could do the bulk of the thinking and creative process from home. And that allowed me, obviously, to be able to also be a parent, because I don't know how other people did it. I have no idea.
I don't either, my man. I mean, I have, my girlfriend has 2 kids, and that was challenging, trying to, and they're like, 5 and 6. So it's almost like your daughter. So it's a very young age. And like you said that, the whole keeping them away from school, especially like their first year, was tough. And then she's trying to work and do her thing. And I'm trying to help out as much as I can. that was just nuts.
Yeah, man, I can't even imagine. You got two of them with you. I can't even imagine that. I got one, man, and I already think, and I'm like, okay, this is already very complicated, and time management can become a real nightmare, But
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially
you know,
if you're
hey,
not
man,
prepared for it.
bless you if you got through it with two kids, dude.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you do what you have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Life throws challenges your way, and when things get challenging, that's not the time to quit.
Yeah,
That's the way I've always felt about anything in life. And
of
I
course.
don't know. I mean, you could call the South American personality in me the love of the struggle, but it's just part of life. When things get challenging, it's not the time to quit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I wanted to ask you something. I was going to ask this towards the end, but I think because you just mentioned the South American thing, Wikipedia. I always try to check the facts on everything. Wikipedia said you were born in Rio de Janeiro, correct?
Right. Yes.
When did you come to the States?
I didn't get to the States till I was about 12 years old, but
Oh, wow.
I lived in several South American countries before I even got to the U.S. I was born in Brazil, but my family moved to Uruguay, and we were in Uruguay till I was about 3 or 4 years old. Then we moved back to Brazil, and I was in
Okay.
Brazil till about 5. We lived there for about a year, and then we moved to Venezuela. And I
Oh,
did
wow.
most of my childhood upbringing was in Venezuela and Margarita Island, which is an island off the coast of the mainland Venezuela, and it's
Okay.
about an hour flight from Aruba. It's in the South Caribbean, and I had an amazing upbringing as a kid, living by the
Yeah, yeah.
beach and basically a beach kid until
Okay.
the political situation got really, really bad in Venezuela. Um, some of my family was part of the Democratic Party there,
Okay.
and when everything started really going,
Like South.
let's say south, yeah, my family was smart enough to know to try to leave the country. And by
Yeah.
that time, we were very lucky. My grandmother, who had loved to travel her entire life, she had wound up in New York City and met a man and got married. So
Oh,
she was our
wow.
conduit to be able to get to the U.S., and to be
Okay.
able to get out of Venezuela. If it wouldn't have been for my grandmother, I'd still be in Venezuela. She had to write a letter to the Venezuelan government saying, she was dying and she'd never get, it was basically a lie,
Yeah.
but that she'd never get to meet us, and that her health
Okay.
wasn't good, and to please grant us a visa so that we could come here. And we did what a lot of Latinos did. I don't hide it at all, but we came here on a visa and we stayed here, and I entered U.S. schools and started going to American schools. And once I did that, it was easier for my family to get residency at the time. At least in those days, they still allowed families to get residency. I don't know if they do now, though.
It's a lot tougher now, but so I was gonna ask because my brother, see, I was born here. I was fortunate enough. My brothers, on the other hand, were born in Portugal, and
Oh, okay, right on. That's where my pops came from. My pops is basically his whole family is Portuguese.
okay, all right, awesome. Where part, like, are they like mainland
Yeah, they
or
were mainland Portugal.
okay,
And Lisbon and Oporto were part of where he had family.
okay, that's awesome. Yeah, like my grandfather was from the mainland, and then my parents were from the islands, the Azores,
Oh
and
man,
it's awesome. I love that place.
dude,
But
man, I haven't visited, but I've seen some pictures.
oh, it's unbelievable.
It's one of those like must visit destinations before you
Hell
die for
yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah, my friend. Hell yeah. It's friggin', I mean, not even just like the Azores, but like the Madeiran Islands. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? Like all those islands. Um,
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a trip I gotta take.
hell yeah.
Something that's based in the ocean, but is a little bit more closer to nature. Because I know
True.
most vacation destinations, that you go are all based around a little beach bar or a little club by the beach,
Yeah.
pools and stuff like that. But I've always wanted to do like a more nature beach vacation, take the kid and show her some cool animals or something like that.
Yeah. So like if you ever go, make sure you visit the Furnas, which is these like volcanic kind of like hot springs. It's unbelievable. It's the main island, San Miguel. It's beautiful, my man. Beautiful.
San Miguel?
Yeah. It's
okay, right on. I got to do something like that eventually, man. You know what? I've always been jealous of the Europeans because in the U.S., to get to all the cool islands, we have to fly. Like, whether you're in New York or California, there's these long flights we got to take to get to all the cool Caribbean or Pacific destinations.
True. Yeah.
And in Europe, they're like right there. They got the Spanish islands there, the Greek islands. They got it all right there. I mean, people in the UK could take a 2-hour, 1.5-hour plane flight and be on the island already.
And it's so much, and it seems like it's so much cheaper to travel in Europe than it is like if we wanted to travel somewhere from here.
Probably, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because the flights are longer. It just takes longer, and it's up in the air longer, and they know Americans are probably suckers for a good vacation, so they know how to get us.
Yeah, no kidding. But what I was gonna say, so they came here. My brothers were 7 and 3. The youngest one obviously didn't have that much of a hard time, but my oldest brother did. Did you go through the same things when you first got here? Like, was it hard to adjust? You know what I mean?
It was challenging. I think that, with all children, or at least under 20 years old, there's this intense resiliency that I think younger people carry.
Yeah.
Where obstacles don't seem as powerful obstacles as much. You feel like you can accomplish and get through things a little bit more. Yeah. Later on in life, things can get complicated, and obviously with more responsibility and things like that, you could sometimes start to feel like you got a lot of things stacked up against you. But at a young age, it was challenging, but I think I wanted to be a part of America so much that nothing could stand in my way. Even the language barrier at first. I remember trying with all my might to communicate with the kids, and they would ask me what my name was, and I didn't know what they were asking me, There was extremely challenging times, and sometimes I even had to get into fistfights because of the language barrier. But nothing really, I just, in my mind, there wasn't even an obstacle that I could consider serious, because I was in the motion of, I have to learn the language. I have to communicate with people, and, I have to go forward, basically. I guess it's the survival instinct. Even as a kid, you carry it with you a little bit in situations like that. As challenging as it may be, and it was, it feels like you could get through it. It's not that bad, actually. It was questionable whether I would have learned the language good, or maybe I could have been left back a year. But I was very lucky. I had good upbringing and a good stepfather and a great mom, and even though my stepfather didn't come here to the U.S. My mother did an amazing job of keeping us in line and making sure that we had enough freedom, but also that we knew where the guidelines were and where to not cross the line.
Yeah. Did you ever, funny question, I'm guilty of this. I'm not going to lie. I took advantage of the fact that my parents weren't very well-versed in English. So going through school was kind of fun, because it'd be like, they didn't know to check report cards. So I'm just like, how did you do in school? Ma, I did fine. You know what I mean? And that would be the end of it. You know what I mean? Or like, if the principal had to call home, I'm like, I would tell my dad in Portuguese. I'd be like, Dad, just don't listen to whatever this guy's got to say. He's lying to you. And my
Yeah,
father
you
would
know
just,
what's funny? You know what's funny? At first I didn't, but then once I got older and got into later middle school and went into high school, I did, because I suppose by then I had already met friends and learned more deceitful ways, and my
yeah,
conditioning started taking a toll on how I was behaving. Ultimately, I mean, all teenagers go through that,
oh, of
the
course,
battle of good and evil. Should I do
yeah,
good, as my parents tell me, or should I test the waters?
yeah,
Eventually I
yeah.
did wind up testing the waters. And
Oh, we all
I
do.
even later on in my teen years, I wound up dropping out of high school. I realized then that that was a mistake, and then I had to get my GED and my SAT and go into college kind of like the backdoor way, instead of just having finished it out.
But you know what, though? It makes us stronger, because let me tell you, like, sometimes taking the hard road instead of the easy road just kind of, I feel like it makes us stronger in a way.
Sure. I mean, it could have. I mean, quitting high school and having to work full time, we definitely weren't a family that had money to throw around. I was never a kid to have more than one pair, two pairs of sneakers tops.
Yeah, same.
So it wasn't, it wasn't a decision that I felt was going to ruin my life, but I did get great work experience, and I was able to begin working at a young age, and that was definitely something that's carried with me the whole time.
Heck yeah, because you understand the value of hard work, and it's shown throughout your whole career.
Yeah, no, at a young age, man, I got thrown into working right away, and I went into the two. I worked at restaurants and construction, so I did the two.
Yeah,
We own your life kind of jobs. Where construction, you don't get a sick day. They don't care. They'll fire you if you call in sick. And in a
yeah,
restaurant, they want all your weekends and all your nights.
yep.
So I got a good hard schooling on work at an early age, man. That's
Yeah.
definitely something that I've been able to enjoy and take advantage of my whole life, and just even doing like personal renovations to my house, and small little things that you pick up along the way.
True. Let's get back into Lions at the Gate. I wanna get back into that.
Sure.
I was listening to the Garza podcast, and I remember him mentioning that the album had been done for a while, but there were some challenges. Like, what kind of challenges were there that led to it? To the first single, "Not Human," being released last month.
Well, we did, because of the travel restrictions, I want to say at the time, we did the album during the entire COVID shutdown.
Okay.
And it was done in two sessions. One session in September. One session in August, and then another session in September. The things that made it challenging were getting the arrangements for all of us to meet up.
Okay.
And to be there, at the same place. That was the most challenging thing. The arrangements, wondering. I mean, in the back of my mind, because we didn't know much about what was happening with COVID and what it was doing and things like that, in the back of my mind, I was like, Kyle is going to fly here and he's going to get sick, and then we're going to be sick. We're not going to be able to record the album. So there was like a ton of worry and concern as to whether we were ever going to be able to meet up. Even the first time when it happened, it was more like, oh, wow, we're starting the album. Everything worked out. But the second time, it felt like there was a lot of obstacles in the way, and anything could happen, and we wouldn't be able to finish the album if Kyle doesn't come back so that we could finish the album. And those were the big challenges, the closures, the travel restrictions.
Yeah.
And wondering if people would like it, if the fans would take to it, and how, also there was also this constant fear of, are we tripping or something? Is the music really good, or just we just like our own music or something? You know, because as a musician, you go through questionable periods where you're doing things and you're really excited about it, and then you question yourself during the process a lot.
Yeah.
Just because that's just the nature of a musician, you know, to be
Well,
critical
of
and to
course.
question.
Yeah, the nature of an artist. You know, you're
Sure.
always critical. But going into this, because obviously you guys had just you know, Aru and Diego, obviously you guys had just gotten out of Ill Nino and had to put that behind you. Was there a conscious effort going in to recording this to say, okay, you know, obviously people are going to recognize us because we're from Ill Nino, and there's almost kind of an expectation as to what they think we're going to sound like, but to try to make it different, you know, because you guys put a very metal sound into this and
Sure.
unbelievable, you know what I mean? And I got to say, Fern is an unbelievable drummer.
Oh, dude, we're so lucky he's in the band. He's an amazing drummer.
I was like,
Absolutely
holy,
amazing.
yeah, I was like, holy shit. When I was listening to it, I was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? Like, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's amazing. Next level player for sure. You know,
Yeah.
it's a blessing to have him in the band.
And even in the music video, you see some of the things he does, and you're like, whoa. You know what I mean? That's like next level kind of shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The dude is flawless for sure.
Dude, I was amazed. He does this trick with during the song with the drumstick, and I'm just like, holy shit, how does he keep it going? Like, man, that's awesome.
Man, he must have gotten started at a super young age, I imagine, because to have that kind of talent, you got to be so intensely dedicated, and you've had your time to
Yeah, and
really do your learning and your developing. You know.
yeah, and you only see that in like certain guys. Like I remember, like, you know, obviously Tommy Lee. You know, even like if we want to go recent, like Shannon Larkin.
Sure.
You know, guys like that, and then you know he is right up there. I mean, this is the first
Yeah,
time.
no, it's really weird. It's really weird the way that the abilities that he has, because most extremely technical players, they're not as much pocket players.
Yeah,
And then most pocket players can't really do the intensely technical stuff. But
yeah.
there are drummers, you know, Fern is a drummer that can do both. And there's not a lot of them that could do that. But, you know, somebody like Ray Luzier is a kind of
Oh,
drummer who can be very technical and then very pockety.
yeah, yeah,
So, you
yeah.
know, Fern kind of has that ability to really go, to really do anything he wants. I mean, he could, you know,
That's what it
record on
seems
hip hop
like,
albums if he wanted to.
right? But like I was saying, so going into this, was there a conscious effort to kind of say, okay, like we're gonna, because it seems like you left out the Latin kind of beats from El Nino going into this.
Yeah, we went straight for the metal on this album. The whole album is a really good metallic album.
Okay.
There were certain things that we did. I don't want to say that it was a tactic, but we did them on purpose. You know, we knew that we wanted to make change.
Okay.
You know, and it was important for us to do something that wasn't too much like what we were just doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we all, in one way or another, at least Aru, Diego, and I, felt like, you know, the creative element in the band we were in prior had fallen apart years ago due
Yeah.
to the instability within the band.
Okay.
And knowing what we had just gone through, and knowing that we were the ones now stepping outside of the group, we wanted to leave certain things behind, and we wanted to focus on making bold change where we could.
Okay.
And I think that going straight for the metallic, powerful album, and there was definitely in the back of our head, we wanted to upgrade the heavy stuff. We wanted to upgrade the melodies. We wanted to upgrade the drumming. We wanted to upgrade the bass playing. In our heads, we wanted to upgrade everything we could,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
had been in a project that was so cornered by all the walls that were put on us.
Yeah.
And it's not, I think that they were psychological walls at a certain point, but when you're part of such a unique niche, I suppose, you kind of feel indebted to it. And I think that when we left the band, we were like, look, some of the work we did in the past is always going to be there, and it's probably going to be the strongest work regarding that style of music.
Yeah.
So I think we just wanted to do not a 180, not a 360, but maybe like a 300-degree turn.
Okay.
Where it wasn't a full 180, but we're still coming back to some things that are familiar, but in a different and unique way. And I think that working with Kyle definitely helped us and pushed us in different ways.
True.
I felt we were just, I personally felt, I don't know if Diego and the Roof feel like this, but I personally felt like the creative element in the band we were in prior had fallen apart long ago. And I was very discontent and extremely heartbroken about everything that was happening creatively, even though there was some good songs and albums here and there. I felt that if there was 3 great songs on an album, that was that. And I've been an album fan, and as a music listener, I've been an album fan my entire life. I like bands that have full albums. I like to put on an album and listen to it beginning to end. If I skip one song, if I skip 2 songs, I'm not happy about it. So
I agree with you on that one. I'm not a fan of bands that just put in fillers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, same.
Because it just almost sometimes it just feels like, I'm not saying you guys in particular, but I'm saying sometimes when you're listening to an album and if it ends up like how you're describing, it almost feels like, okay, it feels like they kind of gave up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know if that's the right, analogy for it, but.
Well, you know what it is? It's when you get too caught up in the cycle of put out an album, do promotion, go tour, then write an album, then put out an album, then do promotion, then tour, then write an album, put out an album, do promotion, tour. Sometimes you lose sight of things. And if you have instability in the band, that could definitely make things go crazy.
Yeah.
I think that even myself, having done it on albums before, sometimes you start to feel like you don't even have, because it's a democratic environment, you don't even have control over how things may turn out. And that in itself could be, heartbreaking to a musician. And it was to me for many years. And, to be completely honest, I'm not sure that the whole band felt like that, but I think we all did.
Yeah.
At certain times, we all felt like we're so up against each other's creative styles that, and add on the instability and the business instability in the band. And it was tough. And sometimes you're like, I guess these are the songs for the album and this is the cycle. Let's go tour because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
But on this album with Lions at the Gate, for sure, we knew that this is our debut album. And we knew that if we don't say something, if we don't make bold change, it's not.
It'll all just fall by the wayside. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just not going to be happy. We're just going to look back and say, God, we did the same thing. And, that would have been the easy thing to do. True.
So obviously we know how, you, Diego, and Aru met. How did you guys meet the other players in the band?
Well, Steven, ironically enough, Steven played on an acoustic album that I put out last year. And he did rhythm acoustic guitar and played a couple of leads also. And we met him, Diego and I met him at a Cradle of Filth show, of all things.
No,
We went to a show and he was there and we introduced, each other, and we just started talking about music. And ever since then, we kind of kept in touch. I really liked Steven a lot, so I asked him, "Hey, do you want to play on my acoustic album? There's a couple of parts that could use some extra help."
Yeah.
And we stayed friends since then. And him and Diego became close friends and started jamming together. I don't know, a couple of months after we did the acoustic album, and basically kept working together. They liked each other's, string playing ability. And Fern actually, Aru found him online. Aru was online and looking at musicians or just, wasting time on YouTube or Instagram or one of those. I'm not 100% sure, but he found Fern on there.
What a great find.
An amazing, yeah, for sure. Definitely. And
much credit to Aru on that one.
Hit him up.
Yeah, no
kidding. Absolutely.
I always thought this. I remember when it came to Confessions, I remember you guys brought in Aru, and I always thought that was such a awesome, person to bring in, because I felt like he brought a certain energy. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing you guys are still working today together.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's definitely had a long history in the industry for sure.
Yeah, Machine.
And yeah. And I mean, I was a huge fan of what he was doing before he came into the band. So for me, I was a fanboy of that whole situation when he started playing with us.
I know. So obviously the fans want to know, Cristian, when can we expect another single and maybe even an album release date?
Sure. I think that we're definitely looking at putting out another single maybe in a couple of months.
Okay.
I think this song still got a little bit more life behind it, and we're hoping, we were really just putting out a song to establish the name of the band. Okay. It's really all we wanted to do. The album is finished, and it's a phenomenal album that I think it's going to blow a lot of people. It's going to blow a lot of people's minds.
Okay.
But we are trying to attract some interest. We're trying to give that a little bit of fair time. If the right thing doesn't present itself, we are ready to release the album. It's not like we're going to hold on to it forever in some ignorant state of mind or something like that. But we do want to at least establish the name of the band, see if there's any interest out there. Yeah, and if not, we're just going to go forward and start putting out the singles, the following singles, which are definitely going to be the songs that are going to blow people's minds for sure.
And I got to tell, I'm super excited because I'm the type, once you give me a taste, you know what I mean? I feel like it's oh my God, I need more. When are they going to give me more? You know what I mean? That's how I look at it.
Right on, man. Hopefully a lot of people feel like you, because we're really going to, regardless of whether we've been in bands before or not, we still are a baby band, and we're realistic to that. And we're not trying to put glitter and glamour on what we're doing. We're a new act and we have a lot to prove. Yeah. So we really need the help of every fan out there that likes the music.
Hell yeah, man.
And I think some of the things we got lined up are gonna really push people even more than Not Even Human. I think that it's gonna be a great album that people are gonna be able to spin for several years. I mean, the fact that I can go back and listen to it and still enjoy it is a big accomplishment. I'm usually pretty critical of everything I do, and I get tired of my own music. I've said that before, but
yeah.
But it's an album that I could still put on and go, wow, these songs are really good. And I haven't done that in a really long time, man. It's been at least a decade and a half since I've been able to say that about any of my albums.
Yeah, I mean, and that's got to be fucking just exciting. You know what I mean? To be able to finally feel that again.
It is. To be a musician and to have that feeling again, that's what actually made me realize this is, and like Diego puts it, this is a gift. We might think that this is a an impossible opportunity, but this is actually a gift. We were given
True.
a gift to be able to move forward
And
and
to
do
just
things
move people.
differently. Yeah, and do things differently, and to change, make changes, and to feel like, young musicians again, even though we're older.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah. I mean, like, you know what, like that whole age thing, like, who cares? Like, I mean, you guys are putting out music that is definitely not outdated. It doesn't sound anything like that. You know what I mean? It sounds fresh and it sounds like it belongs.
I really appreciate that, man. Hopefully it'll keep. Hopefully the fans will just keep bringing themselves to it. The song, when we released it, wound up on the iTunes charts. It was number 3 on the iTunes metal charts, and
Hell
we didn't
yeah.
expect any of that. And it charted in several countries. It charted in Australia and in Germany and in the UK. We really weren't expecting any of that. So
Yeah.
hopefully people keep taking to it, because we're really going to need the help.
Of course.
It's a very challenging industry, the music industry, and we look forward to the challenge.
Definitely, definitely. We're gonna do a little thing. It's like a quick spitfire kind of deal. I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions.
Sure.
And first thing that pops in your head. First album you ever bought with your own money.
First album I ever bought my own money, I think it was Iron Maiden Live After Death.
Oh man, nice. Nice. That's one of my favorite live albums.
I think it was Iron Maiden Live After Death.
That is awesome.
Yeah, one of the greatest live albums ever, for sure.
Oh, for sure. And the whole, and you bought, let me guess, you got the vinyl.
Yes. At the time, I was
Oh,
all vinyl. I was a vinyl kid, man. I grew up
oh,
in the vinyl days.
I still love vinyl. And like opening that vinyl up and seeing all the pictures, and oh man, that was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the days of the physical product, right? That's what they called it, huh?
I know, physical
Physical product.
copies. You know what's
To us, it
funny?
was like the greatest thing ever. When you
I
were a kid
know.
and you got an album, you're like, this is like, you can't even, compare the feeling of like getting a new album, and just, it's your favorite band. You don't know what it sounds like. You haven't even
Yeah.
heard a song yet.
Right.
And it's that ultimate element of surprise. And then it
Hell
just
yeah.
became a physical product.
Yeah. And just have it and just being able to touch it. You know what I mean? And look at your friends and be like, haha, like fuck you. Look what I got. Like I got the new Maiden record or whatever, record. Those were the days.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like such a music kid. I was nonstop listening to music, that even with cassettes, once I knew how to run a cassette player, I would, make copies of everyone's albums if I couldn't buy it. And,
Yep. Yep.
it would,
Yeah.
I totally dove into the music culture.
Oh, dude, me too. I used to sit there and like, because my mother worked her ass off, and sometimes, unfortunately, like I couldn't always get like the album I wanted. So I remember just waiting by the radio. Now a lot of kids won't understand this concept today, but I remember sitting with the radio and the cassette and putting it in and waiting for the right moment when the DJ would stop speaking to hit record on my cassette player.
Yeah, I did that too, dude.
Right? Like
I
those were
did
the
that
days.
too, man.
Like I tell kids today, I'm like, you don't know the struggle. Okay. Like I can't just call on my Alexa and ask her to like, I couldn't do that back then. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. You can't just go to YouTube and hear an album when it comes out.
right. Do you think that
Yeah,
kind
and
of,
there was a lot of things that that bands did really well into playing into the element of surprise and the psychology it has on music listeners, like a band like Fear Factory, who they were
oh yeah,
very their concept was always very well stitched. Their
yeah,
artwork with the music, with the way they looked, it was, and I
that
remember
was
Fear Factory
unbelievable.
being one of those early bands in
Hell
the
yeah.
early extreme metal years that I took to right away, and I was like, wow, what a greatly stitched together concept they have. I mean, it's just
Oh, it was
phenomenal.
unbelievable. I remember getting to manufacture and just remember staring at it and being like, what in the fuck is this? And putting it in and
Yeah,
just being blown away. Like I was like, wow. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
same, same.
And and that was like my earliest, like, I mean, I had listened to thrash, obviously. I mean, most metalheads, but like that was like my introduction into like the more extreme side of metal. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
before.
yeah. They were one of the bands that really, really brought brutality in metal and made it catchy.
Yeah.
I mean, for
Yeah.
lack of a better word, they
Yeah.
were able to have a crossover of music that was so unique at the time, and so catchy. I remember being like a death metal monger and listening to death metal to my late teen years and early 20s, and then sometime in my late teens, Soul of a New Machine came out, and I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? They totally blew my mind because there was nothing like it. And I've always been a fan of bands that I guess have a different, unique sound, that are at least pushing the boundaries, not just with their songs, but with their sound and their style.
Same with me. I've always been that way too. I think that's why I gravitated to them. I think that's why I gravitated to Korn when Korn first came out. I also and that's definitely why I gravitated to you guys, because you guys were so different. You know what I mean? Like that was really like my introduction to hearing like, Latin beats with just, pounding, metal. It was unbelievable.
Sure, yeah, and I mean, we having been fans of bands like Fear Factory and Sepultura, who are very they're identity bands, because there's only one of them and not many other. You could try to sound like them, but only they could
That's
really sound like themselves.
that's
And
true.
we kind of tried to do that. We didn't try to reinvent the wheel or anything, but we
No, but
definitely wanted to take pride in saying, okay, we didn't just settle for something. We tried to make it a
exactly.
little bit different.
Exactly. Like you guys were definitely different. I mean, you could have sounded like anybody else that was out there, but you guys, did your thing and it paid off. And I got to credit my best friend for this, because he was the one. I remember he was like, we went to, I think it was Ozfest 2002, I believe.
Oh, right on.
And I remember him saying, like, dude, there is this fucking band. You got to listen to them. They're going to be the next big thing. And I was like, who are you talking about? And he's like, Ill Nino. And I was like, what? Like, who is that? And I remember, like, we went in, we saw the set, and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I've got to buy, their record. I'm like, wow. And it was unbelievable. And then not to mention, I remember you were walking around and like, dude, you just seemed so cool. You were talking to all the fans, whoever came up to you. It was an awesome experience.
Oh, right on, man. That Ozfest tour was something I'll never forget, dude. I mean, to be a young band and to be on a big festival like that, it's like a dream come true for any musician.
Yep.
And I'm surprised every time somebody brings up that tour. I'm surprised new memories pop up in my head, and it seems like they're all there, and they never really went away. And it was a really memorable time, man. And being on that tour and just being able to be a part of something that massive for us was a blessing.
Let me ask you, because next year is going to be the 20th anniversary of that. Any memories of Dave the Stage Williams?
Oh yeah, man. I think about them all the time.
That was so
I think about them all the
unfortunate.
time. I can't. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit you and say I think about him every day. I know that his band does,
Yeah.
um, but I think about him a lot, dude. Every time I see the name Johnny Poole, the first thing that pops into my head is all the memories we had with Dave Williams, and just what a kind, incredibly talented soul he was.
Yeah.
His voice was so amazing, and I think if it wasn't for Dave Williams having pushed to get us on the Jaeger tour with Cold Chamber, because he was the one that kind of pushed to have us on that tour. I don't know if the Ozfest would have happened for us, because the Ozfest happened because we had come off of the Jaeger tour with Drowning Pool and Cold Chamber and 40 Below Summer.
Okay.
And we were basically, feeling like we were at the top of the mountain, like we're playing great shows. The rooms are full. People like our music. Our song was beginning to chart on radio. But I think that Drowning Pool Jaeger tour helped it tremendously. And
That's awesome.
and it's similarly with having gotten the Machine Head tour in Europe. There was two tours that I think definitely allowed at least my musical career to take off, which was the Machine Head European tour that we did, which was Aru, who apparently was the conduit to sell Rob on bringing us on tour.
Okay.
And then Rob kind of heard about the band and then liked us, and there we went. We went off on tour with Machine Head. And then Dave Williams was the conduit to get us on tour for the Jaeger tour.
Okay.
With Drowning Pool and Cold Chamber. So, I mean, I have huge gratitude for Rob Flynn and Dave Williams. Without those two individuals, I don't know that we would have had the same career, because it was the US and Europe that kind of allowed us to say, oh, we're an international band.
True.
And that was at a time when not every band got to be an international band. You kind of had to be on Roadrunner Records and then have people like your music.
Yeah. One last question I got to ask you, because it always kind of bothered me. I remember when you guys were on Roadrunner and you did the record One Nation Underground. What kind of bothered me was it always seemed like that album was not pushed at all. I mean, and I don't understand, like, if that was them or like what happened with that.
Well, luckily I can talk about it clearly now. Back in the day, if something like that would have been asked of me, I would have just had to shut up, because I was still in the band and dealing with the business aspect of having been in the band. But what actually occurred with Roadrunner was not that they themselves were like, let's not push this band. We don't like their music. They're not going to work hard enough for us. It wasn't anything that had to do with questioning the music or the work ethic of the band. But what it was is Roadrunner was no longer interested in the management company that was managing us. And at the time we couldn't do anything about it. Or at least we were too blind to do anything about it. And we had made some terrible, from Confession to One Nation Underground, we made a terrible managerial move. Terrible. Okay. It brought down the career of the band to have made that change, because of everything that occurred after that and how one card just started tipping over the other card. But at one point during One Nation Underground, Roadrunner Records felt really strongly about the album. They felt the album had a couple of singles on there.
Yeah.
They felt it had at least two. And they released one. It started doing decent. And somewhere along the line, they became disheartened with the business aspect of the band. And they realized that was going to cause a huge detriment in the future, and that we weren't open-eyed enough to recognize it at that time. Okay. And so, they began to drop funding for the band and focused more on recouping their investment rather than promotion. And it is terrible, but I can't really point a finger at them. We made some terrible decisions that were detrimental to the history of the band later on, and they recognized it early on. And we should have been at least a little bit more open. We should have been a little bit more open-minded to listen to what they had to say. Okay. And it's just unfortunate that
it happened that way.
A couple of the people in the band who were closely tied to the managerial situation, they kept pushing for it to stay the way it was and to not make further change. And when they saw that we were just too blind to do it, they kind of were disheartened by that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I mean, I love that record. I mean, and one of my favorite tracks. I don't know if it was a radio single at all. I'm not sure, but it was. Oh man, Everything Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great track, man. And I mean, the producers and the band felt that could have been a single if we had gotten that far deep into the album, you know?
Yeah, that was an amazing track. I still, to this day, listen to that all the time, like all the time. That's one of my go-tos. And I loved Enigma. I know it was like the album after, so it was after the Roadrunner, but Enigma was such an amazing album.
It had some great songs on it for sure. It's an album. I feel like after Confession, we were in a crisis as to where should the songwriting come from? Because the first two albums, the songwriting was a very unique thing, and there was only very, very few people involved in it. And then later on, as we changed members, we wanted everyone to be involved and to, you know, put their creative ideas on the table. So it was not, I don't want to say maybe not an identity crisis, but we wanted to see how we could play with the creative blocks and line them up a little bit differently.
Okay.
So from there, you know, we kept trying to push to try to see if we could find things that would click and that would, you know, guide us in a different direction, or at least make us feel like we're not becoming stagnant creatively. And Enigma was definitely an experimental album for us, and it had some very heavy songs and then some very Latin songs. And
yeah.
I think that if we were been given a little bit more time, we could have maybe, you know, sanded out some of the rough edges.
Okay.
But sometimes that's, you know, that
life.
could be, that could be something that attracted some of the Enigma fans to the album. Was it was a little bit more raw. It wasn't like overproduced.
Yeah.
It had a little bit more of like an organic kind of thing that Jay Baumgartner did with the mixing too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what attracted me for sure. But we are running out of time, unfortunately. I want to thank you so much. And I'm going to tell everybody they should check out Lions at the Gate right now. Go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever, YouTube, wherever you can. Thank you very much, Cristian.
Dude, it has been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you for having me on. And yes, please spread the word. We need people spreading the word. Lions at the Gate. That's the new jam. We're done with Ill Nino. That's the past, and we're like, what was that? Okay, We're here now.
Exactly. All right, brother.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. Have a great day.
You too.